Hey guys, welcome to another East Coast Rams podcast. I'm your co-host Ashton here with my awesome co-host Zach. We're just gonna jump into this, guys. This is one of those pods where we didn't really come up with a full script, and we're
I don't
gonna
really think we
kind of
have
go
to.
through the feelings. Yeah, there's not a lot to talk about a game where you end up losing and you got a defensive touchdown. But let's just get into it, Zach. Your general reactions. The Rams have another game where they have a drive to or a chance to drive down the field and win the game. This is now the fourth out of 5 games, and we have only won off of one of those and lost. This is not a trend typically with the Sean McVay team. Normally, we end up getting more than just 1 out of 4. How are you feeling? How are you reacting?
I mean, it kind of sucks. I mean, just let's be honest with each other. This is our therapy session. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, this isn't good. This is not a good look for our team. I mean, this team should easily be 3-2 at this point, even with some of our injuries. Um, a lot of this is self-inflicting. I know a lot of people are saying this was Sean McVay's play calling. I disagree with that. I think Sean McVay personally had a good play call. Um, there were some miscues, and again, you know, as much as everyone still wants to hate the defense and put all this on the defense, I'm going to
Yeah.
go week 2 for 2. That this week was purely the offense, and I'm putting this more on Stafford's shoulders than anybody else's. I think there was a
Yeah.
lot of misplays. A lot of poor executions, and I think a lot of it has to be put on his shoulders.
I wouldn't say I see a lot of people online right now blaming Stafford. And don't get me wrong, Stafford had some bad plays, but I think the offense as a whole, execution wise, has been poor this season. And especially this game. This was probably the worst game execution wise outside of 2 drives the entire game. We had 2 good executing drives, and then we could move the ball up the field, and then we would just shoot ourselves in the foot multiple times. And it's just such a frustrating game because I feel like when we focused on running and when we focused on specific skill position players, we were doing good. I I thought Whittington has been underutilized the whole year, and he was especially underutilized until the fourth quarter of this game. Like, why was he not getting targets in the first quarter? I like Tutu. I think he has a place in this offense. He's not a wide receiver one, and
No, he's
I
not.
don't understand why he's getting targets like he's our wide receiver one. He doesn't get yak. He does break open for wide plays, but like trying to throw him stuff underneath, it's not his game. It
He's
hasn't
he's
ever
a
been.
hard
And
he's a hard target. And I think we've seen that a lot of times because Stafford either overthrows or underthrows to him. Because I don't think Stafford really understands the speed that Tutu has. Um, and again, I I like Tutu, and I think he does have a place on this team. I think that you know I, I think he has his place, and I think he has a good place on this team. But I do agree with you. I think Jordan Whittington is underused. He did have the high in receptions of 7, second most of the team outside of Colby Parkinson, 89 yards, but he had his longest of 31. So, um, yeah, I mean, he was the third player most targeted. He tied with Tutu with 10. Colby Parkinson was actually targeted the most of 13, but only caught 7 of them. So it's something is. I mean, we said this last
Parkinson
week.
shouldn't be the most targeted. He is not the most talented
No,
out of I I believe the most talented pass catcher we have out on the field that game was Whittington, and he only got a majority of those targets on that second to last drive. that shouldn't be the case. And I do think some of that is on Sean McVay. Uh, I feel like it was hard
It
for
could be. It could be,
the
but again, Stafford has many reads. I mean, if he isn't open, then he's not going to get thrown the ball. You
but
think
he
it's
was
Sean McVay?
open. I was watching Whittington.
But
Like
that's my
Whittington
point.
was getting open.
Isn't that my point that it's more Stafford's fault than McVay's fault? If if he's open, then Stafford should have thrown him the ball. It's not McVay's poor planning if he's open.
I mean, it depends how the read progression is, and we won't
Sure.
know that. So like maybe possibly you're right. Like it doesn't matter who gets the blame. Like I feel like both have a share of why we lost this game. So the question is like I still think you need to be getting the ball into Whittington's hands more than Tutu with this set of wide receivers. And clearly I don't know what they're doing with Demarcus Robinson. I mean, he had a great catch. I'll give him credit, but
He had a few. Yeah.
this why I was saying, guys, we should have traded for a wide receiver.
Yeah, but
Because
it's
our red zone. Do we want to talk about that, Zach? How terrible our red zone play is?
before we do that, for those who are watching us live, please make sure you put comments in the chat. This is something that we want to make
Yeah.
as a community. So if you have questions, feedback, if you're hurt too, just like us, please drop those into the chat as we go along, and we will answer them as well. But yeah, you're right. I mean, our red zone is atrocious. And again, on I can't remember if it was the first time or the second time that we were in the red zone that we decided that we were going to throw the ball twice, the same play both times. We were going to
The
go for
same
it on
play. It drove me nuts. I was like, what?
and
And
it's not the
Parkinson.
fact that and I know that me and you are going to disagree on this, and that's fine. We'll talk about that here in a second. But I was okay with them going four downs in that zone. They were down 7. The Rams are 1-3, or yeah, 1-3. They have nothing really to they need to win this game, and I think they have the momentum to do so. But to do the exact same play 2 times when your red zone has just been atrocious is awful. If you were going to do that, then at least pound the rock one more time. Like,
I,
give Kyron Williams at least the chance to get it in there when he's been the most successful at the red zone.
we only need a field goal if we kicked on that fourth. We would have only needed a field goal at the end of the game to win.
We needed a touchdown to win.
Yeah, 4 points. But if we got the field goal instead of turnover on downs, we would have only been down 1. We probably would have been tied because we wouldn't have gone for 2 at the end of the game. Like you always take your points unless if you are forced not.
So, I mean,
And
if you look,
this is
if you go by the game, that on downs turned into a 3 and out. So they really didn't lose anything at that point. They got a 3
you
and
still
out. The
lost
Rams
3
got it for a
points.
touchdown. You did lose 3
That
points, but again, that wouldn't have mattered at the end. If you take the sum total, they would have lost by 1 point. And or maybe they would have tied if they would have not have gone for that 2-point conversion at the end.
well,
Maybe
they
you're
would
right
have
at that point.
tied. It would have been in overtime.
Sure.
So my whole
I'm
point
okay with
is
that aggression.
in the fourth quarter, I would agree with you. In the fourth quarter, if you're down double digits, you gotta do what you gotta do. But I think in the first quarter, that's some of the that to me is not calculated aggression. That is showing frustration. And you cannot let frustration with your red zone woes affect the rest of the game because that ended up coming back and biting you in the butt. It just did. And not to mention with the fact that we have our red zone woes and you don't know next time you'll get back there. So just not taking the field goal there, I just disagree with it. I understand the fans are frustrated. I understand they were frustrated with not being able to score a touchdown in that situation. But, they ran it twice like people wanted. And I told people you cannot just run it every down. We have to have someone that can catch touchdowns in the red zone, and we don't have that person on the roster right
And
now.
yeah, I agree. I'm agree with you. I do not think out of the 4 downs that they had going on it 4 times that they should have ran it 4 times. I would have been fine with a run. Let's try pass. Let's do a run one more time, and then whatever you want to do, whether it's a run, pass, depending on the situation. But to do the same play twice, when again your red zone passing is atrocious, and yet we continue to do that, and it's frustrating. I mean, I think if you look at the statistics, I think statistics said to go for it, but at the same time, you have to read the situation. We have our two takes on that, so um, we can kind of go from there. But I mean, like let's kind of go into the defense a little bit. So the defense as a whole forced. So let's see. So in the first half, it was punt. Then we had a punt. Then they scored a touchdown. Then let's see. It was punt, punt. We intercept touchdown, and then we held them to a field goal. Our defense actually is playing well. Not saying they're playing great. Not saying they're playing immaculate. There are things that they need to clean up, but they played well enough again for the Rams to win this. It's the offense that has really lost us each and every one of these games.
I agree. That Jordan that Reed 40-yarder that was that should have been picked. That same ball got picked by the Packers. Same almost carbon copy. Ours was a little bit shorter. I think it would have been like a 35, 40-yarder, and theirs was like a 45. It's just ridiculous in triple coverage to have the wide receiver come down with that. That was some of the worst secondary play I've seen in a long time.
Yeah,
All three of those players need the. It's
I
on
will.
Akello because Kello should have tracked that ball. He was the best in position to at least bat that thing away. I still can't believe
I
none
mean, watching it,
of
I thought that
them.
was what's going to happen. I mean, they had a chance to either intercept the ball or knock it away. They could have done
I
either
thought it
one. And
was interception, 100%.
I mean, that is something
At
that
minimal, it bat
you know
away if the wide receiver like gets in your way. Like that happens.
exactly. Like this again. You look at the stats and you're just like, what is happening? I mean, Jordan Love was only 15 for 26, 224 yards. He was sacked twice, negative 27 yards, and he had an interception. You look at Stafford, he threw for 45 times. 45. We ran the ball decently. We got 134 yards. We got to see our first look at Kyron Williams or at Blake Corum.
Like Horn. And why are we
Kyron
just
Williams got over 100 yards.
so the frustrating thing is we couldn't run the ball because we got down in the third quarter. And the issue with that was like my whole thinking going into the season is like be run heavy, have two running back sets, and kind of lean off of that. You can't do that when you're down. So yeah, the interception and the fumble kind of killed that there. But they should have been giving Corum more opportunities early on and having both of these healthy backs kind of crush down the Packers defense. And instead, we started getting pass happy, and that line was inconsistent. And you could tell Stafford didn't know if he had a lot of time to throw or no time to throw, and it was a mix. So, like,
It was.
that's where the Stafford inconsistency comes in because he did not know if he could trust his line. Rightfully so, because they were inconsistent this game with pressure.
I agree. Like I thought the offensive line did not do Stafford justice, but again, I felt like Stafford he has he has the knowledge. He's been in this game for so long. Get rid of the ball. Stop taking these big sacks. It's I get maybe one of them probably wasn't his fault, but I feel like there's at least two of those that he could have got the ball out of the way so that he didn't put his team in even worse conditions than they already were.
Yeah, but he was in the pocket. It would have been intentional grounding.
Well, move out of
It's
the
not.
pocket.
He can't though. They contained. I mean, I know we're used to seeing other QBs and turn into Michael Vick against our defensive edge, because they always get out. But Stafford doesn't do that, and he got close to doing that once, and he got sacked because he did it. But every
Well, it
other
didn't help.
time he was in the pocket, he couldn't
It
throw
doesn't
the
help that
ball.
the refs never call a roughing the passer again. At least 4 different instances
Ah,
that they should have called a roughing the passer, and they just refuse to do it.
and none of those were. I will say this game, none of them were egregious. It's just nice to see other teams get like very ticky tack calls against us in other games, and just to go in this game and you know our team could use the help. Like they're clearly struggling on their own, so I don't know what to say about that. I don't think Stafford was the problem this game. He wasn't the solution. Like he didn't. It wasn't his best game. It was his worst game of the season. But people sitting there like acting like he had all day to throw a perfect pocket and he's throwing to Calvin Johnson. No, like guys, he's throwing to people who would be normally on our practice squad. Like we need
Yeah,
to
I mean,
understand that.
I totally get it. I mean, we have players who are wide receivers 3 and their substitutes playing as wide receivers 1 and 2. I completely agree with you that we have a wide receiver problem. Um, but I don't know. I feel like there's just still something else going on, and it's just becoming frustrating. That felt like we were doing well when we were getting creative with our plays, and maybe that's maybe a McVay criticism is I feel like we weren't getting creative enough in some of those instances. We were getting pretty pass happy, and for better or for worse. I mean, I don't know. We come out of the
I
half looking pretty good. I mean, we were up. Um, what was it? We were up 13 to 10. First time we led going into the half this whole season, and the Rams just come out and we just couldn't get anything really going.
I mean, Kyron fumbled. It's not his fault. The safety made a great play.
He did. He
I
did. He
think that
got
was a
punched out,
safety.
and
No, that was a lineman. So it's not like Kyron just dropped the ball and it was like a bad fumble. Defense made play. That's going to happen. Your offense up to that point only scored 7 points. That's unacceptable.
it is.
Unacceptable. So
And
I
in
mean,
every game, I mean, honestly, other than one game, it's been a one possession game. Comes down to it. I mean, the first one it was a coin flip. We didn't get the ball. We never had the chance. And then the last, really every other game other than the Cardinals game, we've been muffled. To we had striking distance and we could never finish it off. For our court again, and it comes down to like we have a quarterback who's made you know, fourth quarter drives, winning drives and stuff like that, but we just haven't been able to do it the last 3 times.
no, it's been 4 out of our 5 games. We've had a game-ending drive that if we go and score a touchdown, we win the game. And we've only done that once. We've had the
Um,
opportunities. But again,
let's
I think it
see.
comes down to a lack of having enough weapons on offense. And I don't know, when you're targeting Colby Parkinson the most, and I don't think Colby Parkinson's bad necessarily, but he's not it. He's
I mean,
not
he's
it
he's not
tonight.
a he's not a Travis Kelsey or George Kittle or somebody who you're relying on for those pass catches. He's not one of those. He's a really great tight end, and I like the work that he's putting into there. I haven't seen enough that he's going to be should be the number one targeted receiver out there. Um,
No,
yeah,
no,
just
he
kind of
shouldn't
looking
be.
at these stats again, it just goes back to like the Rams should have won this game. We won the possession game. We had the ball for 5 more minutes. We've had more first downs. We had 24 first downs. Um, our third down convert efficiency, we were 8 for 16, so 50% there. Um, Green Bay was 1 for 8 on third down. So we had more plays than them, more total yards. Um,
I just feel like Zach. It gets. I can't wait for both Fisk and Verse to put it all together. But it is so maddening to see them half an inch away from making fantastic plays, and it just goes for 15, 20 yards because of half an inch. And I know they'll put it together, and I think they're great players, and they're young. That's the defense in this nutshell. Super close to great plays, but then they allow big explosives or they give up
yeah,
that
I
first
think
down.
this was the only game outside. So I think each one of them had really one big play, but other than that, they weren't really effective really this game. Um,
They couldn't
as
throw.
much as they have. Right, but I don't think they were as effective as they've been. I think this is the worst performance outside of, the hit to the pick six. Other than that, there was nothing magical about what we saw outside of, you know, what we've seen previous weeks.
No, the Packers passing offense was not good. They had one chunk play, and then they had a second chunk play was because of broken tackles. It wasn't the
But I'm just
coverage
saying,
that was the issue this game.
but so what they have been highlighted over the last several weeks was their individual pressuring, and I think that's what I didn't see on the field is I didn't see their individual pressure. The Rams defensive front as a whole had a really great pressure on them and collapsed the pocket. But as far as like what we've seen in the past, where we didn't really see Jared Verse going like trying to get to Jordan Love. Like we didn't see him try to chase him at all. Same thing with Byron Young. Again, outside of that one pick six, which was awesome, we didn't see those plays, which we have been used to seeing in the previous weeks.
Well, I think that's because the Packers tried schemed offensively around versus this game. I think he got more attention in the game plan than he's gotten in the last few weeks.
And that's totally fair. I just wanted to, that's what I'm seeing when I'm looking at this is the one-on-one pressure versus what they did as a collective defensive front, which again I think they are excelling as the defensive front. But then we go into our linebackers who still can't stop the run. So
Yeah, run defense and linebacker play is the biggest issue, and then you can add in a little bit with the safety and some of the cornerback play, which I thought the cornerback play this week, Zach, was great. I would say good, really good. It was really good, not great, really good. Darius Williams, I thought for the most part he was pretty silent all night, and that's a good thing. You don't want to hear your cornerback one's name often.
well, and he had the big breakup at during the last play of the Green Bay's to have them punted away to give Stafford one more chance. Um, so he was able to do that play, which again is something that we needed from him, and I'm glad he stepped up. Did you? Oh, sorry. Go ahead and talk about this.
Yeah. To answer your question, Brian, I mean, the MVP would probably be Tucker Kraft out of the entire game. He broke tackles. I feel like our defense has been not able to tackle the entire year. So yeah, Tucker Kraft really. Everything else, like the Rams, like Zach was saying, should have won this game. They just, like the entire year, self-inflicted wounds. Uh, that third down where they had the penalty and kept the Packers on the field, that should have been a turnover or like a punt. So it's just multiple possessions elongated uh, by the Packers and the Rams' inability to score in the red zone. Yeah.
Yeah, if I had to give like 3 MVPs, if I had to give game balls out to the Rams players for this, even though they lost, I think Kyron Williams, again, I think he deserves 22 carries, 102 yards, one
Yep.
touchdown. He had that big breakout 30-yard one. Yes, he had the fumble, but again, I agree with Ashton. It was a really good defensive play. Um,
And
it's
not to
it's it's
mention.
tough for that. If I had to give a second one, I would give it to Kobe Turner. Obviously, he was very effective in the first half. Then we really saw in the second half he got 2 sacks. So I would give him probably a game ball. It's really hard to say who was the third one that I would give one to. I would probably split it between Whittington, who I
Whittington.
thought
Yeah.
who was really well, who did really well, and then also just the Darius Williams again coming back, being more silent. Obviously we'd have to break down the stats of how many times uh, he, his side of the
He
field
got
was
targeted.
targeted,
Yeah.
but for the most part, my recollection of this, so that's why I would split that third one with those two players.
Mhm. So, question to you, Zach. With talking about that, what do you think about the fact that Trey White was a healthy scratch? Do you agree with some of the, let's say, third and fourth string cornerbacks that got on the field over Trey White?
So it was breaking after the game that Sean McVay did say that he was benched. That was a coach's decision to make him inactive. Um, I think I think McVay watched the tape and saw how much um, he was getting burned, and there were several things that you could look at, tapes that you could look at, that he was one of the most targeted uh, backs who the offensive wide receivers were having a successful matchup against. So I think they looked at it. They got Darius William back. They had a Keller Witherspoon, um, and I think that they were just like, well, I think we can. What's the harm in this? And so they did it, and that's what they said. McVay said that he's a total pros pro when it came to the decision. Um, so there's that. Not sure if you agree or disagree. Again, Darius White, I think, Tre'Davious White, just he didn't he had some decent plays, but nothing outstanding that would, you know, I kind of agree with how McVay took it this week.
I just don't
Would
know
you
if
have
his play. I don't know if his play rose to the level of like not even letting him be active on game day. I don't disagree. It hasn't been great, but like what a lot of our players haven't been playing great, especially on defense. So, I mean, McVay sees more of his play in and out and actually looked at game tape. So, like I said, the secondary didn't do terrible outside of that Reed uh 40-yarder. That was atrocious. But outside of that, it was just tackling that was bad. The coverage wasn't, they weren't throwing it up and down the field consistently. And that's all you can ask for. So I guess it was the right decision outside of those three people not catching the interception. I'm not going to get over that one for a long time. That's almost like if you remember, Zach, like 4 or 5 years ago, that game against 49ers where we had like a third and 17 twice in a row in the same last drive, and the Niners converted on both. Yeah, this one's gonna sting as much as
it
that one.
is. And again, just because it's one of these things where it's like we should have won this game. We should have won many of these games. This is all coming down to some ticky tack coverage. Um, but it's when we don't have our best. We don't have our best offensive line. We don't have our best receivers. It makes it difficult and it makes it challenging for Stafford and McVay to come up with a scheme when you're down, um, Puka Nakua and Cooper Cup. And hopefully, based on reports that came out today, that we'll get Cooper Cup back for week 7 um, against Las Vegas. Unclear what how the other players roll out as far as getting Avila back, John Johnson back. Puka Nakua still seems like he's probably another couple weeks out, but again, we'll know more after the bye week. So
So, question to you, Zach: is next week a must-win? And not next week, but 2 weeks from now.
100%. And again, it comes down to this is another game that we should win, and it's going to be the bounce back week. If we can't win against the Raiders, then I don't know what we're doing.
Mhm.
They're rotating in their quarterbacks. Obviously you have Max Crosby, who's always a threat, but will he even be on the Raiders team come 2 weeks? Who knows? Um, it's just one of those things where it is a must win. If the Rams want to be competitive, if the Rams want to get to this, get make any difference into this the playoffs, they're going to have to win. The Rams have come back before. Obviously, when we went to the Super Bowl, they had that whole month of November where they couldn't win a game. Um, they were in a lot better position in the first half than they were when they entered in November, but it is something that they can work with. And if they can get the right people healthy, if we can get Cooper Cup and he can stay healthy for the remainder of the season, then we might have a chance to, make it more competitive in the NFC West. Right
We
now,
gotta have a position to start out with, though. By the time he comes back,
this is true. This is true. So
yeah.
I think we can. We just it has to be a must win. If you look at the standings right now in the NFC West, we're only one game behind the Cardinals in San Francisco. They
Excellent.
played today. So
They all lost,
the
so
car the
everyone
card
lost.
well the Cardinals won, which is what we needed
No, sorry. Yeah,
because they played
Cardinals.
against the 49ers. Um, so it ended up being well for us. So Seattle's only 2 games back, and Arizona and San Francisco are 1 week back. So again, if we can go ahead and we can move into the next week and we can get a momentum going, then I think it's going to be fine. The good news is the Cardinals have to face against the Seahawks next week. So it's another divisional game up close and personal,
Mm.
which could help in the
So,
seedings. But yes, I agree with you. It's a must win. Or I think
so
it's a must.
if it's a must win, and this coaching staff truly thinks this is a year we can be competitive with our fully healthy starters, do you go all in for a trade? Do you go all in for a trade? Because I will tell you now, teams are going to value our first round pick this year a lot more because of our position. And if you can trade for, hey, if we could trade for a Max Crosby or trade for Devontae Adams or trade for Amari Cooper, there's options out there. Do you
But I
make
think
that trade at 1-4?
but I don't think those players want to come to the Rams at 1-4. They're trying to get out of their team to be on a better team. And if the Rams can't even show that they could be a better team, then what's the point?
I mean,
I mean,
you can make an
I think for
argument
those
that you can make an argument that McVay could sell them and be like, "Hey, we have injuries. You can clearly see we're not getting blown out all 4 games. We've lost 4. Like we've only lost them by 1 possession on the last drive of every game. It's not like they're not competitive at all. So you could make an argument like right now they could be 4-1 if things kind of balls bounce a better way for the Rams, they get a little lucky. Uh, it's not crazy to point that out to these players and be like, McVay has a proven track record. He's gone to Super Bowl twice. Hey, even if it's not fully competitive this week or this year, it definitely will be competitive next year. Do you want to come here and try to build something?
I mean, that's assuming you still have, your pieces that you currently have. If you still have Stafford,
You're opening that up.
I'm
You're
opening up the
you're
door for
opening that
Stafford.
up.
I'm opening up the door that maybe
Stafford.
I will he be a Ram next year? I think this all comes into play. I mean, I did not see a good performance from him. I don't know how committed he is right now. Um,
What more could he do? Like in that situation,
I don't know.
I don't see
I
what
don't
he
know.
could have done more. Like people want him to play like Superman, and you put Patrick Mahomes on this offense, maybe he gets like 7 more points in that game. That's about all. I don't
It,
understand.
so, but 7 more points would have won us the game. I'm just, I just think it's
I
one of those
understand.
things
My
where,
point is like
again,
Stafford didn't play terrible.
I mean, he
I mean,
almost
do
had a
you
couple
guys
interceptions.
disagree with me in the comments? Like, am I the only person who's like,
I mean,
I'm not blaming Stafford?
Parkinson saved another interception. Um, so maybe that, I don't know if that was considered one of the targets, because again, I really think it was going for 2-2 behind him. Um, and Parkinson just kind of stopped and tapped the ball away from the back of Green Bay. But I don't know. I do think that this, out of the first 5 weeks, this was the worst performance that Matthew Stafford has had. And again, I wouldn't put this on Matthew Stafford. The first 4 weeks, not once did I have a doubt of Matthew Stafford. This is the week that I kind of didn't see him at his best. And again, I understand that he has some issues, or he doesn't have issues. He has, not doesn't have all of the weapons that he's used to. He's dealing with, you know, a roster of wide receiver threes slash practice squatters.
With 2 backup linemen on the line.
Okay,
Uh,
I think they were okay. It wasn't great, but it was okay. It was enough to
it,
give Kyron
that
Williams 107 yards.
I mean, I think that's more about Kyron like constantly breaking people's tackles in like behind the line of scrimmage. Like he did that 5 or 6 times. That fourth down play, he should have not gotten the first down. Or is the game should have been over there. And I don't know why we threw 2 times on third and fourth down there, personally.
Yep, I know. Um, this is a funny stat. I don't know if this is. I would have to go fact check it, but I just saw the Rams under Jeff Fisher never started a season with a 1-5 record. Seems kind of bullish. I don't. Again, I'm not putting Sean McVay under the bus. I think, again, as a play caller, it is different than Stafford, who's actually throwing the ball to his different reads. Whatever you want to make about that.
Yeah,
Um, I still think Sean McVay is doing what he can with what he has, and I think that does fall a little bit on Stafford too. Um,
it's a mix. It's definitely a mix.
but I
They,
do think, if it were me, I'm leaning more towards blaming Stafford more than I'm blaming McVay in this one.
mm. I will say this: we're gonna find out a lot about what this team thinks of this upcoming season in this bye week and in next 2 weeks. Because if they really think the season isn't lost and this is a competitive season, you go out and you try to get people. Because
Yeah,
there are pieces you can add to this team that when everyone gets healthy, that could help in the upcoming week and round out your roster for when it gets fully healthy. Those
I
pieces are out
just
there.
it's I don't disagree with you. I just don't think a Devonte Adams is going to want to come to a 1-4 Rams, or even a Max Crosby. Um,
Well,
you know,
that's an example. Like the
I
Packers,
get
that
it.
wide receiver, we could trade for him. Amari Cooper. Like there are people.
There are people out there, and I don't disagree. I think it's the deadline is actually, I think, a week later. I think it's like the first week of November, is the deadline. So I could see if the Rams could stack 2 more wins. I think, and they have to be good wins. I don't think they could be close wins. I think that they're definitely going to be someone to be of a threat with. Um,
But we need people to get wins. Like you,
I get
as
that,
the
but you also
team
have to
is.
right, but you have to get the right people at a low cost. No one is going you're not gonna put all your dimes you're not gonna put all of your money into a basket that you don't know if you're gonna even get to the playoffs. You wanna save that capital for a more competitive.
Romeo Dobbs wouldn't be expensive.
Sure, grab him. I don't care. Again, it's as long as you're getting something and you're not giving away a fortune. Because again, you don't want to give away your future for if you don't even know that it's going to be successful this year. You want to make a long-term play. It needs to be a long-term player that you know you're going to keep for 2 or 3 4 years, or you need to find someone short-term, like it again. Like if you found like an OBJ or something like that, that might be okay. Um, That's who I would be looking for. I don't think you're looking for a Devonte Adams who's looking to play on a high caliber team right now.
I think Amari Cooper would be more of a realistic option, but Amari
Yeah.
Cooper, Romeo Dobbs. I think Romeo Dobbs, like if you could get him for a 6th rounder, why not? Like,
Yeah, you're just going to come down to the crunch time of who are you going to let go at this point. Um, you're kind of running down your list a little bit, and you're expecting Cooper Cup to come back. Are you getting rid of Demarcus Robinson? Are you getting rid of um, Tyler Johnson? Are you getting rid of? You're obviously. I don't think you're going to get rid of Xavier Smith. Um, are you getting rid of Tutu Atwell, even though he's right now been the most really outside of Whittington, the most productive Ram, at least for long and distance,
I would say Tyler Johnson.
who didn't
Unfortunately, like
even did he even have a he didn't even have a target.
he had a few snaps. He was in there.
Just wasn't targeted. Even Xavier
We
Smith was
we
targeted twice.
we need a red zone option. We need a guy who could be a one right now to win the next 2 or 3 games. If Cup comes back, then you get more flexibility with getting a guy like Dobbs, where I feel like he's a good, solid wide receiver too. And you add him, and then when Puka comes back, that's not a bad trio. And then if we
Yeah,
keep on running the ball and the O line gets healthy, my important thing is if you haven't given up on the season, then you got to win these next 2 games. There's just no option. You can't wait for everyone to get healthy now. You got to win because if we're 1-7 by the time the team is healthy, what's the chances we win every game for the rest of the season?
yeah.
You have to win every game.
We have to win at least the next one. The week 7 against Vegas, week 8 against Minnesota, week 9 against Seattle. That's our next 3 up after the bye. Vikings are going to be a tough one. Probably the toughest of those. Obviously, I think there's an ability to beat the Vikings, and I think there's an ability to beat the Seahawks. Rams usually do pretty well against them, so we'll see. But I do agree. I think having Cooper Kupp just back in the huddle, I think is going to be helpful. I think it's going to give Whittington someone more to lean on and things like that. So I'm looking forward to seeing that come back, and hopefully we do. But I think that we probably should wrap this episode of the East Coast Rams podcast up. Do you have anything else you want to say before we do anything else?
No. Well, we'll see what they think about the season in the next few weeks. I don't ultimately think they're going to make any trades or anything like that. I would if you still have a belief, but they're in the offices, they see the players, and if you know the season is cooked, then top 5 pick.
No. So I still don't think the season's over yet. I think we still got a couple more games to play. See how we do against Las Vegas, and see what the outcome comes with the Vikings, and we'll readdress at that point.
Yeah.
But getting Cooper Kupp back, getting some more of our offensive line back, giving Whittington and Corum some more opportunities, I think will definitely help moving forward. So let's hope that the Rams take this bye week, truly reassess everything that they have on the table, figure out where they're at, where their inefficiencies are, and try to fix those things.
Yeah.
Because when it comes to it, on offense, we really need our wide receivers back. I don't, again, outside of maybe gaining a wide receiver like you mentioned, I think they're pretty okay. The defense side, even though they're playing well, we got to figure out how to stop that run game. If we can close that run game a little bit, I think that this defense is more threatening than anything. So whether we look at a linebacker position or we look at someone else to help stop the run, I think we should do that.
Yeah. It kind of
Oh,
sucks. Murchison broke his foot a day back after getting off IR.
that's definitely rough. That just seems like how the Rams season is going. But it seemed like mostly everybody else seemed to come out of this pretty healthy. I think Logan Bruss came out for a couple plays, but went back in. Whittington did hobble off after that last big catch that he had. He did go off to the locker room, so I don't know if they have a recap of that, but it is what it is. But anyways, thanks everyone who is watching live here at the East Coast Rams podcast. Maybe we might do a preview episode next week. Me and Ashton will talk about that and let you guys know. But again, thank you guys for watching us live. You can find us at youtube.com/@EastCoastRams. You can find us on X at East Coast Rams, on Instagram and Threads at East Coast Rams Pod. I'm Zach. You can find me at Zach Mayer, and this is Ashton, Ram Fan Ashton 1. And we will see you guys next week.